Welcome to the Snohomish Storytellers. Here in our little corner of the universe in Snohomish, we have a strong sense of community and heritage founded in the whispers of yesterday's stories and the narrative of what is being written today. Snohomish Storytellers captures this through organic conversation between Snohomies, former, present, and future.
This podcast is brought to you by the historic Downtown Snohomish Association. Our mission is to promote, preserve, and improve the Downtown Historic District as the heart and soul of the city of Snohomish. My name is Megan Hetherington, Executive Director of HDSA, and my lovely co-host is
Sheila DeVerter, Board Member of HDSA. And with us today is also our podcast producer and Vice President of HDSA, Trent DeVerter. And welcome to our podcast. Welcome to today's episode of Snohomish Storytellers. In this beginning of September, when we're recording this, and we'll be publishing in September, but I am ready for fall. I am dressed like I am ready for fall.
You look fall today.
Thank you.
I like it.
Intentionally.
I almost wore boots, but I went with these because I was feeling kind of like you, Will. Like there's still some summer left.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ready to put the boots on.
Got to squeeze every last bit.
Yeah.
But with fall is back to school.
Yeah.
Which I love back to school. I'm a stationary girl. So
that's right.
I go big like back to school. But I mean, I don't need school supplies now. But in spirit, whenever I see like Target, Walmart, notebooks,
would you like
binders.
someone to buy you school supplies that you don't need just so you can feel nostalgic that way?
I don't know if it'll make me like happy or sad that like because I'm over that phase of life or because it's colorful and stuff. But yeah, so today in theme with Back to School, we have our guest, Wil Johnson from the Snohomish School District.
Yay. Hi, Will. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And will you share with our listeners what your official title is?
Oh, my official title. I am the Director of Equity and Inclusion.
Ooh.
All right.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. And what does that mean?
You wouldn't believe how many times I get that question.
I bet. Yeah.
And basically what I break it down to people as think about the kiddo that was in school that for some reason they weren't successful. They didn't have what they needed. And you just wish there was someone that could work with the staff or the student to figure it out. That's what I do.
Oh.
And
I'm just going to put you on speed dial because.
and the thing is, it's not that I have all the answers because I don't, but it's like, how do we look at our internal resources, external resources, and make sure our kids have what they need?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And, whether it's a student, my background was a special ed teacher.
Oh.
Okay. And so when people ask me, how did I make the switch from special ed to equity and inclusion, I'm like, it's the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have learners with special needs. So I need to identify what those needs are to help equip those students to be successful. And then with the inclusion part, do they feel safe, welcome, and supported amongst their peers?
Wow.
That's what the job's all about.
And what sort of support do you have to carry out this job for the whole district? Or is it like you're the package deal?
I am.
One-stop shop.
Right, but it's interesting because this is just the third year that I've been in the district. And the work started, I would say, back in 2019, within the district in 2019, about really looking at what is it that we need to do to support all of our students. And so there was a committee called the Human Rights and Equity Team. Right.
Okay.
And so they worked with a consultant to do these surveys to, get information about what was needed. And so then when they hired me on, I actually created equity and inclusion framework to say, hey, here are some of the tools that we're going to use to walk us forward. And I guess that's a long way of saying when we talk about equity and inclusion, it's not one person's job, it's everyone's job. But how do we now build our collective capacity to support all of our students and families as well as each other?
Oh,
so
interesting.
that's kind of your job too, then, is to build that.
Oh, absolutely.
That sounds like a huge undertaking.
Right?
But fun. So much fun. Yeah.
And much needed too, because like I feel like back in my day, I swear our listeners probably think I'm like 65 years old, but
you look great for 65.
65.
I work really hard. I can hear Trent laughing on the other side of the curtain. I do look fantastic for 65.
Yes, you do.
See, now I lost my train of thought.
You're welcome.
You're back in your day.
Oh yeah, back in my day, it was kind of like a job to hide the differences that you are, right? Because either you you stick out and you get bullied, or you stick out and you get into a school system, like going to, like in my school district back in the day, we had like an alternative high school.
Right.
And it became a stigma, right? Where you're like, oh, you can't perform like this, or you can't do this. So you get shoved into this super secluded sector of the school. You don't socialize with the same people. You don't eat lunch with the same normal classmates. And it becomes such a stigma that like you never want to ask for help. You never want to stray outside of the lines. And it's so cool that now it's being embraced, and that there's someone who's actually thinking about like, what are all of the varieties of like the children that we even have, so that we can accommodate them in a humane way.
How do you get the kids to buy into that? Because as I'm hearing Sheila say that, I'm like, yeah, recognizing, check. You know, I have one child who graduated in 2022. I have a high schooler now, and then a fifth grader. And I would say ideally doing the work and like the trickle down effect is a great, wonderful thing. Where do you get the buy-in from the kids, especially the ones who fall into the categories where it's like, I know I need extra support. I know that I'm different, but God forbid anybody recognize that, or I take the extra support because I'm going to be scrutinized by my peers, or even the alternative high school here is great. Like we've had experience there, and yet it was really hard for our child who ended up going there to go there.
Yeah.
And the only reason he did was because it was during COVID and everybody was remote. So it was like, well, that doesn't matter. I don't have to see anybody. Yeah, like everyone's at home anyway, but there's still a definite stigma.
Absolutely.
So what is that like from your lens? What does that look like? And what sort of way? You're grinning in this way that I'm like,
grinning.
Oh, I'm excited to hear your answer.
You're taking me back even to my interview. And I remember people asking me like, what am I going to do? What's my plan? And I was very clear on, it's not just about me. It's really about our partnerships and what we do together. And so I was really intentional about making connections with the city council, with the Chamber of Commerce, with community organizations, because our schools are a snapshot of our community. Our community is a snapshot of our society. The thing that's going to give us the best leverage is regionally and throughout the state, if we're creating this space where we begin to dissolve the stigma. Okay, now that's bigger stuff. That's something that Wil's not going to do first 2 years, but we're working on it. As far as locally, what we're doing is those one-on-one conversations. Because if I can have a conversation with an administrator, with a parent, with even a student, and they're like, oh, well, here's a different way of looking at it. It really helps to change that perspective. I appreciate your question about how we're getting student buy-in, because I do feel in general that in conversations with our students, a lot of them may be even better than the adults at being accepting, because I see more of it in the media in some spaces. Where it's like, hey, we're all this, here's how we can show up. But then some of the problems is that it just stops there at the surface. We don't really understand the why behind it, why it's important to connect. I also did acknowledge last year, here I am doing all these trainings with our administrators. The administrators train the teachers. I'm out in the community having conversations, and I'm like, yes, this is wonderful. This is working. And then I go and talk with some students. They're like, who are you? Like, you don't know who I am. You don't know what I do. Okay, so let's go back to this. Go back to the playbook. And this year, really, I'm going to be working a lot more on connecting with more student organizations, being more present in like the commons in classrooms, so students know who I am, what I'm working on, why we're doing it, and the role that they can play in this work.
Wow.
So it's all about connecting the pieces, both to the students, both to the adults, quote unquote, that can help facilitate it, and making sure that like everyone has the foundational understanding, the knowledge that the resources exist, that you exist, and like really getting your name out there. That be like, hey, this is a thing that you can rely on. This is a person you can talk to, and it's recognizable.
Yeah, my theme for this year, whenever I'm walking to a student, up to a student, and they're getting ready for the school year, and someone may ask them, how do you think you're going to do this year? Well, I'm going to do better because I'm going to work hard and I'm going to study. And, they'll say all those different things. And I'm like, can I add one more thing to that? You're not alone in this. And it's like, make sure you identify who are the people you can turn to.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And before you find yourself overwhelmed, it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing right there, because I know there have been many times in my life where I'm just like running, and don't want to talk to anybody about it.
Mhm.
And I'm stressed out for no reason, because if I had gone to Megan initially, she already had the answer. Like,
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like showing them what the resources are
mhm,
and making it plain English applicable to them.
Right.
Because I feel like sometimes, even as an adult, if
Mhm.
you're like, here's some resources, it's like pages of paper and you're like, great, thanks. You
It's
know,
like taxes. I
Right?
hate it. Whatever you're like looking up, like, how do I fill out this form? And it's in like legalese, right? And I'm
Right.
like, okay, this is going nowhere. It's not helpful.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I
yeah.
imagine like a kid who's struggling, and like some of this has come from our own experience. So it's like I can reflect and be like, yeah, I can see how this would be like. How would child A and child B, who both had struggles, but different struggles, different
Mhm.
ways, but we're still like not the atypical, or not. What am I trying to say? They're the atypical student.
Yeah.
They're not the standard, like, I love high school. I want to be in all the
Mhm.
clubs. I love coming here every day. Or like, that's get me plugged in. They're like,
Mhm.
how can I fly under the radar? I hate going here. Why do I have to be
Right.
here? I have a hard time. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to ask anybody for help
Mhm.
for different reasons.
Right.
Like, how do you connect with those kids? And I'm just picturing both of these, both of them. Here's these resources. They'd be like, thanks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Throw it up. They'd be like, tear it up, throw it away,
Right,
because
right.
it's like, even that is just so intimidating and scary,
Absolutely.
But like my sophomore, she's going to be a sophomore. She has kind of learned over the last 6 months, like there's certain resources that I understand I need and that I want
Right.
them. And so as we've been working on like, here's what that's going to look like,
Mhm.
she's looking forward to that.
Right.
Mm.
But I can't imagine trying to do this for so many. I can hardly do
Yeah.
it for my own children.
Right.
Like I'm just, being totally
Right.
it's like parenting is so hard
yeah.
that like if you're trying to reach this group of kids, you have
Mhm.
thousands of kids to the whole district,
Right.
and they're all going to be in different phases of their lives.
Mhm.
You have to work with administrators, teachers, some teachers who probably really care overabundantly, and those who are just kind of there to do the bare minimum of their job. Like it's kind of true among all industries,
Yeah.
right? And that student, like however they come across to said teacher or administrator, it's kind of like a luck of the draw, what sort of experience you're going to get. So this just sounds like intense work to me.
Well, and that's one of the things too that we're really working within our district. That our term is more alike than different,
Mm.
and it's like how more similar than different. How do we ensure that the experience a kid gets at one school is what they're getting at a different school?
Yeah.
Mm.
And so how are we now working with our administrators to ensure that they're supporting their teachers for them to now support their students?
Mhm.
And I agree 100% with what you're saying. I feel that some of the things that we're talking about, it would feel out of context to have those conversations at home.
Mhm.
Right.
You're sitting down with your kiddo and it's like, hey, let's do this analysis of your identity and really unpack what your goals are. And they're like,
It's like, mother?
No.
No.
But when we talk about being in school in the context of learning,
Yeah.
we can now say, hey, during advisory or during our morning meeting, we're going to take some time to really better understand ourselves. So
Mm.
one of the simple things that I saw years ago is like an I am poem. And so you're talking about, I am from Snohomish.
Mhm.
I am in the 5th grade. I am, and it's like,
Mhm.
here are all these different aspects of your identity.
Mm.
And then maybe like, I want, okay,
Mm.
here are the things that you want. Wow, you're establishing your goals. Here's
Mm.
where you are. How can I now map from where you are to where you want to be?
Wow.
Wow.
See?
I need to do
You
that.
got some
I'm gonna
stuff,
write that
man.
down.
Yeah. We need to have some
Yeah.
workshops like that.
Right. That is amazing. But I get what you mean though. Like the context makes
Yeah.
a big difference in how you start the conversation, where like you're not just outright saying, okay, who are you and what are your goals?
Right.
Like you would a 40-year-old adult, maybe like in a workplace setting. Sorry, I
Right,
needed
yeah.
to caveat that because it sounds a lot like your performance reviews at work, right? You sit down with your manager and be like, so how do you think you do? What do you want to do next year?
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah.
like, keep my job. But yeah,
Keep my
like the
job.
context
That's
is
my goal.
very
Stay
important.
employed.
It's very important, and conversations that might not be as natural with a parent,
Mhm.
but with like a third party might
Right.
actually work out better.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
But then also, how do we equip parents to understand, one, that they can do it and what we're doing and the purpose of it? And so a lot of the stuff I want to do this year is actually get more to our parent organizations and say, hey, here's what we're working on.
Mhm.
And so now when your kid comes home, you can ask these questions like, so what'd you work on today? I understand you were working on something about your identity and your goals.
Mhm.
Oh, well, hey, here's this little template that we filled out and I brought a blank copy for you, Mom. You know?
That's awesome.
And our uncle, here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Family
But-
involvement.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But utilizing those resources, because I think back to when I was in school, I really don't feel like there were a lot of things that were sent home with me with the intention of also connecting with my family.
Ah.
It was, hey, you come in, you do your work. But a lot of the stuff that we're doing now, even in our evaluation framework, is how are you involving families in this
Mhm.
work?
Yeah.
That's great because, also it's reinforcing the thought processes
Mhm.
even at home, right? Because, a kid might get it a lot at school, whatever subject it may be outside of, the identity
Right.
exercise. But it's like learning a second language. You can learn it all you want at school, but if you don't use it at all outside of school, it goes away really quick. So same thing with a lot of these like self-discovery things. It's like you do it at school, but if your parents aren't open and talking about those stuffs, or they're not equipped with the right tools and resources to support those conversations, that also will cut the growth short.
Right.
So really you're hitting like all the
I'm
angles.
trying.
Yeah. Well done.
Yeah.
Well, I was a defensive coordinator when I coached football.
Ah.
And so it's like, what do we need to do to make sure that we're getting all these spaces taken care of? But I
Yeah.
love what you're saying too, because I was having this conversation a couple of weeks ago with somebody, and someone can have a certain level of knowledge and experience in something, and let's just say it's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But now they're doing this with someone who has no clue
Mm-hmm.
of what it is that they're doing.
Hmm.
And so now, even if they have the best intentions and, they're working in a positive direction, it may be resisted because you're speaking a foreign language. I don't
Mhm.
understand what this trauma awareness and working through our triggers type stuff is, you know?
Right.
And it's like, but I know that's a trigger for me and I know how I'm going to respond. So here's what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can't just avoid it. No, I can't.
Yeah.
I can make that choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're really educating everyone.
That's the goal.
It's not just the students, it's not just the people in
Right.
the school district, but you're educating the entire community at this point. Man, the job just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
I know,
doesn't
right?
it?
Yeah. Whoever who hears this can give Will a raise. Go ahead and
Yeah,
do that.
please do.
Awesome.
That's cool. So how did you end up coming into this role and
Okay.
into Snohomish? Because I think from a conversation I heard, you and I were at a social event. I don't remember what it was. And I was doing something. So I was coming in and out of the conversation. And so I missed little parts of it. And for my own benefit, I want to hear about it today too. But
Okay.
if I remember correctly, you haven't been in Snohomish for that long.
No, not long.
And you came here for this job specifically?
Specifically for this
All
job.
right. So how did that happen?
Wow. Because there's several different lengths to this story. I'm actually going to go back to when I first wanted to do this work.
Mhm.
Okay. So this would have been back in 2007. Yep. 2007, 2008. This is when I was working on my bachelor's degree at UW-Tacoma
Mm.
in communications. And I had an opportunity to work with the Office of Diversity Affairs in Puyallup, with the Puyallup School District. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, wow, there's actually a job that is, designed to help students have access to education. That
Mhm.
sounds cool. I'd like to
Yeah.
do this someday.
Mhm.
Well, hey, Will, you have to understand that I was a teacher. This is from the director.
Mhm.
He's like, I was a teacher, then I was a principal, and now I'm in this role. So I've been in education for years to
Mhm.
get to this point to where I can now do this job supporting the entire district. I'm like, oh, wow, man. And you know what? Yeah, I don't really think I want to be a teacher. So, yeah, I'm not going to do that. but I was interested in it.
Yeah.
And so I graduated my communications degree in 2008 during the recession.
Mm.
And, there weren't really a lot of job opportunities. And the ones that were, I'm competing against folks with master's degrees and a lot more time and experience.
Yeah.
As I was trying to find work, I was still had those connections with the school district. And they're like, hey, would you want to be a tutor? And I'm like, I need a job. So yes.
You're like, sure.
Yeah. So I started out as a tutor for what's called the AVIT program. And it's a college
I
prep
remember
program
that
for
program. Yeah.
kids. Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
really good program. But I did that. But that was like, a couple hours a day,
Mhm.
like $13 an hour.
Oh,
Wow.
And this was in 2008.
Not going to sustain your life very well.
Right. And so then it was like, well, if you want more work, you could be a substitute security guard. And I'm like, okay, I'll do that because at least that was $15 an hour.
Yeah.
You know, I'm
that's
like,
some big money there.
Big money now, 15 an hour, right? So here I am, college degree, $15 an hour, sub security at the junior high and high school, but that's only when they were absent. And so it's like, okay, well, I can sub security this day, but now I got to cancel my tutoring.
Gotcha.
And well, I'm not a consistent tutor, so I have to either give that up for one. And I'm like,
you're like, this isn't working.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not working at all. And so then they're like, well, hey, you could be a substitute para. And I'm like, okay, how much does that pay? And in 2008 in Puyallup, it was like $10.40 an hour.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I'm like, so I could have regular work and make less money. Okay.
Wait, that
Wow.
was less than the tutoring or
Yeah.
the security.
Yeah.
And don't you have to have a degree to be a para?
You don't. No.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
Yeah.
But
You
still.
you didn't then. I think now it might be an associate's degree or something.
Okay.
But yeah.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
And then I did submit my transcripts when I realized how the system worked.
Mhm.
And I was able to move up to $12.85 an hour is what I was
Ooh.
making in 2009 when I was hired on as a full-time para.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh. That's
my
amazing.
God.
And the thing is I'm in the classroom and I'm working with this kiddo who had autism,
Mm.
was nonverbal. The reason why they wanted me to work with him is because he was extremely aggressive.
Mm.
And they're like, well, so you're,
You were a security guard.
yeah, you're a
so-
security guard.
Yeah.
You're almost 6 foot, just almost. Over 3. Yeah, he's not going to beat you up. I'm like, my size is not going to stop that kid.
Yeah.
You know. So anyway, but coming into that into that environment, I'm like, okay, how can I help this kid? I
Yeah.
have no idea.
Mhm.
And behavior is communication.
Mhm.
Okay. And so as I'm looking at his aggressive behaviors and no one's listening,
Mhm.
we need to break this down.
Yeah. Like, what does he need?
What does he
Wow.
need?
Yeah.
What is he communicating?
Uh-huh.
Let's work with that
Mhm.
and develop a system to move forward. So when working with that team, we went from having over 100 incidents per week, which were hitting,
my
spitting,
gosh.
kicking, biting,
Oh,
throwing
gosh.
computers. I mean, it was,
Throwing computers.
oh yeah, you know those little old Apple
Yeah,
computers.
the Mac.
Yeah.
Careful.
He would pick them up and he'd toss them, and
Ooh.
you just watch out.
Oh
And
my
so-
gosh.
But we went from having over 100 incidents per week to only having about 4 or 5 over the course of
Wow.
a year when we transitioned to the high school.
Wow.
And my special ed director at the time was like, well,
You're doing something right.
Magic
Yeah.
touch.
like, you need to go get your teaching certificate.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay.
It's like I said, I didn't want to be a teacher.
Right. And so, you know, I started, got into teaching, taught special ed. And again, all about meeting with the students,
Uh-huh.
identifying what their needs are, helping them be successful.
Right.
My very first year of teaching, and this is actually in my cover letter. So if someone's looking to hire me, you might get the same letter. But the letter talks about this kiddo saying, what's going to happen when you get promoted?
Oh.
And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, when people do a good job, they get promoted. I'm like, dude, this is my first year. Like,
Yeah.
I'm listening to you and I'm trying to help you out. And it's like, it doesn't work that way in education. We don't get promoted.
Uh-huh.
You actually have to go back to school
Uh-huh.
and then
Mhm.
actually apply to try to get a higher level
Mhm.
job. And so
Uh-huh.
I was like, maybe you need to look at that in education. But anyway.
But he was worried that you were going to be moving on.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
That's so
And-
sad.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But I'm like, why aren't there more educators that kids feel this way about? And I mean,
Yeah.
I know that they're out there,
Yeah.
but some of the kids that are in those special ed programs,
Right.
they just, may not have had a good run. And so
For
how can
sure.
I be better for those students? And so that
Yeah.
led me to just want to continue to grow in my capacity. But, being a first year teacher,
Mhm.
what influence do I have?
Mm-hmm.
And then even in my second year, I got transferred to a different high school to take over the behavior program,
Mm.
which was awesome. If you're in your second year and you get your own program,
Mm.
they trusted me
Yeah,
that
that's
much.
amazing.
But I'm taking over that program, and we did wonderful things there. I really enjoyed working with the students, working with the staff.
Well, and the kids, like I was just thinking when you were saying, I'm new to this. What am I like? The kids don't know that.
The
They don't
kids don't
think
know.
that. Like they're
Right.
like, oh, you're a rookie. What are you gonna do? Like they're just like,
Right.
you're here, and I'm here with you too. So
Mhm.
let's see what this is gonna be about.
But I
Yeah.
wonder if that's also like a sign from a previous interaction that they might have gotten where, they did get comfortable with someone and they
For
leave,
sure.
right? I mean,
Right.
that happens with, I think, a lot of teachers because the kids move grades, right? And the
Yeah.
teachers stay the
Right.
same. I remember like really liking a particular teacher, and it is tough to like let them go when you yourself have to move up a grade.
Mhm.
So there's definitely, I think, elements of, potentially being afraid of being abandoned by someone you trust, right?
Oh, so
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
So the core of the work is really about relationships and showing up in consistency. But when I go to this other school, I was there for a period of time, and again, being newer there, not really having that voice, and I mean, it all ties into inclusion. What voices do we have that are amplified or silenced based on whatever reasons? If you're the new person,
Right.
you don't have a voice, and so I was like, all right, what do I need to do next? Well, if you really want a voice, you need to become an administrator. Okay,
Wow.
great. I actually started work years ago to go into a program, but didn't because I had some personal stuff in my life. And so it wasn't until about 2018 that I decided again to go into a program, pursue a certificate in education leadership to become a district administrator for special ed.
Wow.
So now in that sense, I'm able to support principals and teachers throughout the district in the area of special ed. Now, keep in mind, even special ed itself is a marginalized population that isn't, widespread. And so when opportunities started to come available, mostly after George Floyd was killed, unfortunately, around diversity, equity, and inclusion, I'm like, all right, I want to get out now and be able to work with an entire district as opposed to just a select population.
Wow.
Yeah.
And here you are.
Here I am.
That is a lot.
I know. We're both just like processing.
And I'm skipping stuff because I'm like, we could talk forever on
Right.
this, but
I know. And I have like my mind, I keep coming up with so many different questions. And I'm like,
Right.
okay, stay on target.
I mean, I think it goes to show, sometimes you never know where life's going to take you, right?
Right.
You were out there with your communications degree and you're like, teaching? Nah, thank you.
Yeah,
And here
right.
you are teaching so many people, so many different, levels of people, students, administrators, etc. It's crazy. You never know where life's going to take you.
I do like that you were seeing opportunity and asking questions like, I see this problem and I want to
Right.
be able to grow
You're a
into
problem
that. What am I
solver.
going to have to do to be able to do that?
mhm.
And there you just were like, I guess I'm going to need to get this degree and this certificate. And I like that though, because you're seeing not only your own talents and where you can be most effective, but also doing what has to be done to make that difference. Good for
Right.
you. Not a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I came by that at a very early age.
Mhm.
So I just remember this moment so clearly. I was probably about 3-4 years old. Okay. And
We're going way back.
right. Well, yeah. My mom and dad divorced when I was 2. A while later, she started dating this guy, Michael, stepdad. Love him. We're at his apartment. All right. And Michael was cool because he always bought me toys. That's what I told my mom when she asked me if she should marry him. I'm like, yeah, he buys me toys. But I remember one day I'm in the back room and I'm playing with some like ship or something. And I walk out into the living room and I'm like, Mama, can you get me some water? And she's about to get up and grab me some water. And Michael's like, no, hold on. Can't you get it yourself?
Ooh.
Right? And I'm like, really? Like, man.
You're like, I'm 4, dude. I can't reach it.
Like, I could not reach it. Like, are you kidding me right now? And so I'm like, all right, but you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
And so I go in the kitchen and there's this little step stool off to the side, and I'm like, oh, all right. So I grab a little step stool and I bring it over to the counter, and I'm like, all right, get up on the step stool, grab a cup, slide over to the sink, fill it with water. I'm like, hey, I got this.
Yeah.
It's like, watch me,
That's
Mom.
awesome.
Right,
I love
right.
that story. That's such a great example because as parents, you're always like, okay, how much do I need to do for my kids? I want to give them everything they need to make sure that but really what you have to think about is how are you setting them up for success without you? That's your job.
Exactly.
Like your job is to make your children successful when they depart from you
Yes.
in the best way that you possibly can.
Yeah.
And it can be something as simple as like empowering them to get their own water.
Right.
Because that instills confidence, you know?
Yes.
And it's not like every time you get water for them, you're telling them, I don't believe you can do this. But when you're
Right.
kind of, I don't want to use the word force, but you're
Mhm.
basically taking away the option that you're always going to
You're
do it
given
for
a
them.
learning opportunity.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
my parents were really good about that. Like, I feel like I would communicate, I want to try to do this thing, or
Yeah.
I want to do it. Let me do it. I was one of those kids. Let me do it myself. I want to do it myself.
Mhm.
And they would just let me figure it out.
Yeah, that's the best thing.
Yeah. Like I remember my dad had this box of like random pieces of wood and a hammer and nails that were for me. And I would just nail wood together. Like I wasn't necessarily like building anything, but he would just let me try.
Yeah.
But through that, I actually learned how to put things together and like how to actually appropriately hammer a nail into a piece of wood.
Right.
Like instead of like tap, 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 it's kind of more like bam, bam, bam. And you get it in there. You know? But it's like those simple things that if he was like, no, I'm busy, get out of my way, let me do what I'm going to do. Or no, not right now. Like we can get so focused as adults on what we're trying to get done that we forget that like everything is like you're saying, Sheila, a learning opportunity for sure for kids. So I love that.
Yeah, I do understand the struggle though, especially with parenting. I'm not a parent, but I could imagine parallel thinking with like how I treat my coworkers. But there are some times, right, where you're like, you're busy doing your own thing. And then you got this coworker who's like, oh, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? And you can either take the time to teach them how to do it. Here is how you save a Word document to a PDF for the 10th time. Or you can just be like, okay, send me the file. Let me do it. And it'll be done in like 2 seconds. Right. So I totally understand though, when you're a parent and you're juggling so many things and you're just like, here, quick, you know, and I think, got to give ourselves grace or all the parents grace that time and place. But I think
exactly
having those intentional moments where you're wiring the neurons together in the kid's head, right? To be like, hey, this is a template for problem solving that you might use for getting water that you may apply in other situations in the future and kind of setting them up that way.
Yeah.
But that's great. Yeah. You got your own water and now you are a director of equity.
Now you got your own district.
There you go.
Thank you, Michael. That's so awesome. So from what you've done here in Snohomish, what would you say is like our biggest opportunity? Hey, Sheila and I are on the same wavelength. Opportunity for growth here. I mean, you've talked about a lot of things, but if you were to identify like 1 or 2 things that we could really focus on together, as you've been talking about, it needs to be this group effort, you know, this community reflection.
The biggest thing is improving our own self-awareness and breaking down walls, you know, because I believe... I'll just be blunt about it.
Yeah, please
When
do.
I think about any form of discrimination, that's a behavior. And my question is, why? Why do we feel that a group of people or someone who identifies a certain way isn't welcome? What is it within ourselves that's now creating that barrier?
Yeah.
And how can we work to tear down that wall? And the more we can engage in those conversations and improve our understanding of ourselves and others, that's the biggest thing I feel we can do to move forward.
Yeah.
Man.
That is such a simple answer.
It's such a big task. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. I mean, like we, you know, HDSA, we did Snohomish Pride. We had in our group of volunteers that really wanted to bring this to the community. HDSA was kind of like the platform to do it. But it was, I would say 99.8% completely volunteer managed. I was the 0.2 assisting here and there.
You're like, here's the signature.
But they were, they were an incredible team. My 0.2 was like, I would receive feedback, you know, like I respond to the generic emails. I get all of our contact forms. That's part of my job. So, you know, it was a controversial thing to do here. And I would have tons of positive feedback and people that were just like so grateful. That was incredibly meaningful. And then I would have the ones too that were like, I really don't like this. This bothers me. I'm upset about this. And every time I would be like, let's have a conversation. Would you like to talk on the phone? Would you like to go have coffee? I had more coffee dates between like the end of April and the beginning of June than I've had probably in this entire job. But every single one was worth it because that person felt seen and heard. And it wasn't just like this generic, I don't care what you think. We're going to do what we're going to do. Because like you're saying, you have to have the conversations. Like I wanted them to understand the basics of like, who's HGSA? What do we do? Well, one of our values is inclusion. And that means everybody, everybody in our community. And this group of community members, all volunteers, which we are volunteer driven, want to see this in our community. And we are here to empower people that want to do that. And like you're saying, where the fear or like the root of why they feel agitated, you know, and I think just like I said, being able to give them a chance to share that was most of the time what they were looking for.
Right.
I will say not everybody.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Most of the time they just wanted to be able to ask their questions, share what they felt. Lots of times there was a misunderstanding. Like they would have a picture painted in their mind of what they thought this was going to look like.
True.
And it didn't look like that at all.
No.
So having those conversations to be able to, get to the root of those issues, like it was super powerful. I will not even pretend to say that it wasn't challenging. It was challenging. It was challenging for me, but it was a great growth opportunity. But also I think I didn't ask them specifically, but from what I observed, I would say that each person felt so much better at the end. Like they would come in closed, like their body language was like tense and closed up, and they'd be like, "Are you Megan?" Yes. Heather. But then by the end, we're like, every single time we had something in common. Every time. Like it was just, two community members talking. Like, yeah, I'm here doing this as part of my job, but I'm also this person that lives in Snohomish and cares about it as much as you do, which is why you reached out in the first place, because you care,
Yes.
So I totally, that was a long rant, but I totally identify with what you're saying, that like, you have to be willing to have the conversations. We can't keep polarizing ourselves one side or the other. I don't agree with you. I won't even talk to you about it. I'm not even going to give you the time of the day, because why would you even say that? It's like you have to be able to understand why they're saying what they're saying and give them a chance to understand where you're coming from, And,
especially if we put it in the lens of public education. And let's say if we had educators or administrators that had that ideology of, I don't agree with you, I don't accept you. So now you have a kid that comes into our school system that now does not have access to opportunities that can take them forward in life.
Right. Yeah.
And so one of the callings of public education is that we support every student within our boundaries.
Right.
Yeah.
We make sure that they're provided with access to opportunities to reach their goals.
Yeah.
Right.
And so if are there things in our community that's impacting that? Absolutely. We may not have that much impact in the community outside of school, but that's where it's important to leverage those relationships. And how do we connect with parents and community organizations to say, hey, how can we be a better community to support our schools and our students?
Yeah. And I think it's so important that we are reaching the young people in the community, because they are the next.
They're the future of Snohomish.
We always say that the children are the future.
Yeah, but they truly
really
are.
And you really get like a barometer of what their parents think. Like the conversations that I hear from my kids and their friends who we might be around because they're at our house or whatever. Like I volunteer in the schools too. So sometimes I'm hearing these conversations among each other. It's a real eye opener. Like if you don't ever spend any time in schools, like kids are brutally honest and they will share stuff that you're like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe that they think that this is true.
Yeah.
Or that like it's coming from someone in their life. Right.
Absolutely.
And so it's a real window to where we're at. Right.
It's so tough though to think, as you're like describing, like the public education part, like you want to make sure all of these kids have access to all of the resources that they need, no matter what they believe in, they identify as, etc. And I can imagine how hard as a school district or an administrative function to make sure that teachers as individuals also are able to retain their beliefs, whatever they may be, but still provide that equity to all of their students, right? Because in my head, I can imagine how conflicted if I was on the other side of things. If I firmly believe ABC and my school district is telling me you need to give these kids 1, 2, 3, how difficult that would be as a person and someone who's so personally involved with the children on a day-to-day basis to be like, yes, kiddos, 1, 2, 3, when inside you're like ABC. And it's like, how do you deal with that from as an administrator? How do you deal with that when you are that teacher that is in that position? And then later on, also the parents, right? Because right now, we have a big, so I'm from Iowa, as I've probably mentioned many times on this podcast, but one of the headlines that I saw come through my Facebook feed, because I still have some Iowa folks on that, some of which were my high school teachers actually.
Mhm.
But they were talking about some of the book bans that came through Iowa, and it's I as a teacher might not agree, or I do agree with this, or I as a parent support it or don't support it. And it's I in a way I feel bad for the kids who are getting these potentially conflicting feelings from people that they're supposed to look up to.
Mhm.
Is my mom wrong or is my teacher wrong? And not saying there might be a right or wrong, but just
It can feel that way though. As a
Exactly.
student, I think especially younger kids, it's not common for a younger child to feel the gray area.
Yeah.
It's this is the yes, this is the no, this is the right, this is the wrong. So I see what you're saying.
It's a very tricky environment that you're working in.
But one of the things I think about when we're talking about who's right and who's wrong, there was this concept I was introduced 2 years ago. It was a class called Career Skills for Leaders. And it was a concept called the Johari window. Are you familiar with that?
No.
Awesome.
Educate us.
Yes.
That's what I do. I educate. But with the Johari window, it talks about there's 4 pains. Okay. And here's the pain of we all know this thing.
Okay.
Okay. So we know we're sitting in a room. Right. But then there are things that, maybe just about yourself that we don't know. Right.
Okay.
Then there are things that I may know about. You don't see the spider on the wall behind you. There's not one there, but you can't see that.
I know, where?
Yeah. And then there's the unknown. We don't know what's happening outside that curtain right now.
Right.
And so how do we process all the dimensions of information that are available and then make our decisions from there? So it's not always that someone's right or wrong. How are they making decisions based on the information they have available at that time?
Right.
And the more we increase our knowledge, then we can make better decisions, which is why I greatly struggle whenever it comes down to banning a book. Because it's hey, here is information that someone's presenting for some reason.
Right.
Depending on the content, should it be available at this age level, this grade level? That's a question. But we don't just say, oh, hey, you wrote this book, you have this information. We're not going to consider that at all.
It's like teaching critical thinking.
Right.
Yeah.
So important.
It is so important. I was brought up in evangelical church. And so there were certain things that were just scary to me, like evolution, scary topic.
Right.
And I remember going into my 7th grade year, and it was, for some reason, this was the biggest thing on my mind, was they were going to teach evolution in my science class, my biology class. And so I went to my teacher, my poor teacher, and I was like, I'm just letting you know, I do not believe in evolution. So if you give me any sort of project that I have to work on, or a paper I have to do, or something where I'm going to have to state that this is all evidence, I won't do it.
Oh,
And
wow.
I know, right?
Assertive Megan, 7th grader over here.
Protest of faith is what was in my mind. And my biggest regret growing up, which is you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wish, because my mind actually works at a, the way that I think is usually on a more problem solving, logical, I like to take in all the possibilities level. But when it came to certain things, where you would have convictions or something, or you could possibly, what you're saying, be right or wrong. I also have a strong sense of justice, and I wanted to be on the right side.
Yeah.
And in my, for the information that I had at that time, that was the right side. And the thing that bothers me about this, and I still will actually think about it often, is I wasn't willing to go into it and let myself take in the information for myself.
Right.
I had made the decision ahead of time, and I wasn't even willing to look at the possibilities of new information being presented in front of me from another perspective. I decided ahead of time that
This is it.
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah.
There's a yes and a no, and this is a hard no, you know?
Right.
And I think that example comes into my mind so often because I wonder how many other opportunities growing up I was missing out on for just getting new knowledge, new perspectives, or better understandings of other people and what they might think, because I was closed-minded, you know, and essentially I allowed myself to embrace that closed closed mindset instead of the growth and open mindset.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm thankful that as I grew up, my perspective changed and, you know, life takes you in lots of interesting places. But when I talk to my children about stuff now, I'm always like, well, what do you think about that?
Yes.
And have you considered the other person's perspective? Have you considered, like you're saying, these books that are, this information was put out there for a reason.
Right.
You can judge it for what it is, but at least give it a chance. Like at least take it in. Like what sort of interests or passions are you not going to discover if you're not even willing to see it, or it's not presented to you in the first place because somebody made that decision somewhere for you, you know?
Yeah. The taking away of the opportunity to make the judgment.
Right.
In a way, a lot of these, you know, book bans or other rules that come into play, it's taking away the, hey, grab your own glass of water. It's your mom saying, okay, here's your glass of water. And it's like, how
and
much
you
are we
get
taking
this
away?
much in this cup and
this temperature.
Yeah, exactly.
And then from then on, you hated water because you thought that it was, you know, 86 degrees water. And it's like,
And I wanted it in my Star Wars cup.
Of course.
I like what you're saying though. It's the back to the what we can work on is the awareness. I think a lot of empathy probably goes into that too, to be able to stand back from your own opinion, right? And be like, okay, is that spider behind you real or not? You know, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Is the sky actually blue? Who knows? But I think that's something all of us in all aspects of life can probably work on improving. Not just education, not just with the kiddos, but, you know, with everything.
Man, we could keep you here all day.
Absolutely.
I just want to talk to you about all the things. We do want to be respectful of your time, though. And also, we can't have like a 6-hour podcast.
Yeah. I mean,
We'll do part 2.
I'm sure we could. We could.
A special marathon session.
Right.
Yes.
But
Be like, pause now and go get your glass of water and come back. So we do like to wrap up our episodes with a question for you. What is, like, if you could describe your perfect day in Snohomish, what would that look like to you?
Now, see, after listening to several episodes, I was getting ready for this question.
Were you?
I was.
You prepped?
Of course he was.
He educated himself.
And, you know, so I live in Mukilteo, and so I really don't spend a lot of time in Snohomish outside of work. And so, of course, mine would be a work-connected type of day.
Okay.
And so for me, you know, I'm at the high school when the school starts because they're the first ones to start. And I'm out there with our security, our administrators, welcoming students, seeing the high fives and the smiles as kids are getting dropped off. And then, you know, maybe I have a meeting with a teacher or a parent and have those aha moments, which are great. Same thing going to an elementary school because they start later, seeing elementary school kids come in. And at, like Seattle Hill specifically, they like dancing in the mornings.
Oh,
At least they used to, you know.
So cute.
And I'm like, this is so cool. Like, we didn't dance. You walk in a straight line.
Single line. Everyone faces the same direction.
But yeah, I got to get coffee over at Bigford as I'm driving into town. Maybe grab some breakfast, a little salmon egg bagel at the Java House.
Oh, I love. They're the best.
Right.
They're the best.
Right.
I'm gonna have to
Lunch
check out
somewhere
Java
down here
House.
on First Street. And wrap up my day, and I'm going to miss Thursdays at the farmer's market because that was my Thursday to just kind of walk the market and see people, grab some fresh fruits and veggies, and probably some little trinket that I don't really need, but supporting local vendors, right?
There you go.
But yeah, just really getting to see the people and having conversations like this. That's my perfect day in Snohomish.
Nice. Love it.
So great.
Thank you for sharing that. I like it from the work perspective. I don't think we've had that one yet.
Yeah.
It's always been like leisure.
I mean, I think it goes to show like how much you enjoy your job.
Oh, I love my job.
You know, the fact that you're so invested in all these kids and you literally like paved your career just out of like, you know, I want to do what this kid deserves. So man, I'm so glad to have you in our school district.
Thank you. Thank you, Wil, for all your work.
Yeah, I'm so
making
happy.
Snohomish a better place.
Right. And all the kids that are now going to have the opportunities that they might not have because they have an advocate like you to speak up on their behalf in the school district, I think is going to be huge.
Yeah, and there's so many more out there. I was just over at one of our schools earlier today, and I love that I can walk into I can walk into any school. If I was like, oh, well, it's so good to see you. And how often do we feel that way about our leadership in an organization?
Yeah.
You know, because I'm on the superintendent's cabinet. I'm like, you know, one rung down from the top people. And I walk in the building and folks are like, oh, well. I'm like, that's what's up.
Those are the goals right there. And you made it.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Love
That's
it.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank
it was
you.
wonderful to get to know you a little bit better. And thank you so much for what you're doing for us. We really appreciate you and keep it up.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Keep it up, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Snohomish Storytellers.
Keep writing those stories, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Snohomish Storytellers, brought to you by the Historic Downtown Snohomish Association, produced by Red Trucks.